There are whispers all around Hollywood, whispers about powerful figures, those untouchable names, people who control everything behind closed doors. But what if I told you that many of these untouchables weren't just partying, air quotes? What if there's something far darker, something sinister happening behind the glitz and glamour? You won't believe who's involved, and the deeper you dig, the more you realize. This is just the beginning. Meek Mill, Naomi Campbell, Oprah Winfrey, Ashton Kutcher. Names you recognize, names you trust. But could they be hiding dark secrets? How deep do their connections to Diddy really go, and why is this storm getting bigger every single day? The streets are talking, and the real question is, who's guilty and who's just playing the game? But let's start with Meek Mill, someone who has become a central figure in this scandal. From the very beginning, Meek was right there beside Diddy, front and center, soaking up the limelight. But when the charges hit and the RICO case started shaking things up, Meek seemed to vanish into thin air. He quickly distanced himself, claiming he had nothing to do with the mess. But here's the catch. The streets haven't forgotten. Meek's own birthday bash, thrown by Diddy in Vegas, was a wild spectacle with everything from lingerie dancers to sushi served on a naked model. This wasn't just a party, it was a statement. And now, after the legal drama, the leaks, the accusations, how much of that mess did Meek actually know about? Is Meek really innocent, or is he just another player in this complex game? There are so many powerful figures on those lists, individuals whose names echo in the halls of influence, whose actions can shape entire industries. These are people who seem untouchable, shielded by their wealth, status, and connections. But how many of them were really just partying? Air quotes. At first glance, it might seem like a harmless bit of excess, a night of revelry among the elite. But when you look closer, it's clear that something darker, something much more sinister is at play. And the question we have to ask is, how many of these powerful people made it to Diddy's infamous parties? Have you been keeping up with the trial? Oh, absolutely. This trial is a spectacle in itself, a legal drama that's unraveling layer after layer of secrets, lies, and unspeakable truths. It's more than just one man's fall from grace. This is a deep dive into the underbelly of the celebrity world, where power, money, and influence are often used to cover up the worst of human behavior. There's so much more beneath the surface here, and the real questions are only just starting to be asked. Did these high-profile individuals make their decisions based on hidden agendas and corrupt alliances? Who got the benefit of the doubt in the courtroom? And more importantly, who's really going to be held accountable for the havoc they've caused? Do you think the true target of all this was hip-hop culture as a whole, or was it just Sean Combs, Diddy himself? No, absolutely not. Listen, if I didn't speak up, people would just assume that hip-hop as a culture condoned everything he did. And that's dangerous. That silence could be deadly for the culture. It would paint the entire movement with the same brush, as if we as a collective are complicit in his actions. Even if no one else is speaking out, that silence would speak volumes. People would assume we're okay with it, that we're fine with turning a blind eye to things that should never be tolerated. But we can't do that. We can't afford to stay silent. This silence only strengthens the narrative that hip-hop, as a culture, condones that behavior, that we somehow endorse these darker actions. Joe Rogan and 50 Cent, these two aren't just talking. They've cracked open a whole can of chaos. After everything that's happened with Diddy, they've started hinting that more big names are about to be brought into this mess. The way they're speaking, you can tell that this fallout is just beginning, and it's going to be much bigger than anyone thought. As we already know, Diddy's facing jail time. The judge, Aaron Subramanian, gave him a 4-year sentence after he was convicted on 2 lesser charges out of 5 he was facing. But don't get it twisted, this case is far from over. Joe Rogan and 50 Cent aren't stopping with Diddy. They're out here dropping names, and the ones who were most closely tied to Diddy might not be as safe as they think. The first name they dropped was Meek Mill. Honestly, it's not a surprise. From the very start, Meek was all about Diddy. Allegedly, he was one of Diddy's favorites. When Diddy's name was untarnished, Meek was always by his side, front and center, smiling for the cameras, partying and soaking up all the attention. But as soon as those charges hit and the RICO case started swirling, Meek quickly tried to distance himself from Diddy. He wanted no part of it, acting like he never even knew the ma. And remember when Meek jumped on social media, trying to convince everyone that he wasn't involved in anything Diddy was being accused of. He said, "My voice is powerful as a black man from the ghetto. They wanted me gone, I'm a king. No one controls me, I'm no one's puppet." Those are strong, defiant words, but the streets didn't buy it. They saw it as panic. It seemed like Meek was trying to run as far away from Diddy as possible before more dirt came spilling out. When Diddy was sentenced to 4 years, Meek doubled down. He started claiming that he had never been involved in any of the shady business people were whispering about. He claimed the blogs were twisting his name, dragging him into scandals that had nothing to do with him. But the problem with that is simple: people remembered. Anyone who remembers the birthday bash Diddy threw for Meek in Vegas knows exactly why people are looking at him sideways. Diddy rented out the entire Parisian palace. He spent $25,000 just on the mansion alone. And Meek, he was right there in the spotlight, front and center. Matching outfits with Diddy, coordinated entrances, lingerie dancers, and even a sushi spread laid out on a naked model. But that wasn't all. The party ended in chaos. Broken bottles, used condoms, bloodstains on sheets, and half an ounce of nose candy scattered across the floor. It looked like something straight out of a disaster movie. And then, of course, there's the leaked audio. Meek and Diddy caught in the act. That audio exploded across the internet, sending shockwaves through the industry. Meek immediately tried to deny it. He said it was fake, that AI bots were out to ruin him. But too many insiders are saying that someone who was actually there recorded it themselves. The audio paints a vivid picture: loud sounds, struggling, people calling each other daddy in a way that didn't sound innocent. Meek called it fake, but people are starting to question, was it real? And then Jaguar Wright, always outspoken, dropped a bombshell. She claimed that Nicki Minaj had paid a bodyguard to leak it. Later, Nicki herself joked about Meek's love for controversy. And suddenly, people started to wonder if there was more truth to the rumors than anyone wanted to admit. You think that audio was real? Yeah, that was him. Nicki knew. Nicki just wasn't ready to tell the world that it was Diddy. But now that everything's out in the open, why not? That's not a diss. Meek loves the spotlight. He thrives in it. Whether he admits it or not, he enjoys being brought up in the drama. It's clear that he can't resist the attention, even if he tries to play it off as though he's above it. The streets know that Meek Mill is loving the attention, even if he denies it. His story has shifted once again, as if he's trying to rewrite his own narrative. Now he claims that while he was present for all the madness surrounding Diddy, he never got involved in any of the questionable activities. He insists that he merely kept his distance, that he was only there for the vibe, soaking in the energy of the night but not engaging in the chaos. But now the real question arises: which version of the story does Meek want the streets to believe? Is it the one where he wasn't even there, where he has no involvement whatsoever in the wild antics that transpired? Or is it the one where he saw everything with his own eyes, but somehow managed to sidestep the madness, like a ghost in the room? And here's where the stakes get higher. Rumors are circulating that Diddy might flip. The whispers are growing louder and people are starting to wonder if he might snitch, turning on everyone who was close to him. If Diddy starts naming names, who will be next? The streets are waiting for the fallout, but it's clear that Meek, now at the center of these swirling rumors, might be one of the next casualties. If Diddy flips, will Meek be able to survive the storm that's coming? Or will he, too, be swallowed up by the mess he tried so hard to distance himself from? But while Meek's story is still unfolding, another major name has entered the spotlight: Oprah Winfrey. Yes, Oprah. The mere mention of her name in this context has sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. The rumor mill is working overtime, and now word on the street is that Oprah might be tied to Diddy's notorious freak-off circles. For those unfamiliar, these events have become infamous for the wild, debauched behavior that takes place behind closed doors. At first glance, this may sound utterly shocking. Oprah, the queen of daytime television, linked to such a scandalous world. But dig a little deeper, and some argue that it makes perfect sense. Oprah's ties to powerful, questionable figures are not exactly new. People still remember the photographs of Oprah cozied up with Harvey Weinstein, long before the world knew the full scope of his predatory behavior. Weinstein's reputation was something of an open secret in Hollywood. There were whispers, rumors, and murmurings about his misconduct for years. And yet Oprah continued to publicly support him, attending his events and standing by his side even as the tide of public opinion began to turn against him. Her silence, in the face of so many accusations, only fueled speculation about her own role in the system. Was Oprah simply protecting the system, or was she complicit in it? But Oprah's ties to controversy don't stop with Weinstein. She's also been connected to a much darker scandal, the one involving her $40 million South African school project. This was meant to be Oprah's crowning achievement, her legacy, a school she poured her heart and resources into. But behind the scenes, there were accusations of stories of girls being abused at the school by staff members, as if Oprah's attempt to elevate young women was met with the ugliest of betrayals. Oprah flew to South Africa in an attempt to address the situation, firing several employees, crying on camera, and vowing to make it right. But critics say the whole story never added up. People questioned how much Oprah really knew and when she knew it. Now those old accusations are resurfacing and the whispers are getting louder. Could Oprah have known more about the abuse than she's letting on? The streets are asking, was she unaware or was she protecting something far bigger? Hollywood insiders are no longer staying quiet either. Names like Jaguar Wright and Humor have alluded to Oprah's unchallenged power, an invisible hand that controls Hollywood, keeping people too afraid to cross her. There are even reports of people canceling interviews, avoiding any interaction with Oprah for fear of being blacklisted. No one wants to be on the wrong side of Oprah, especially in an industry where her influence is so pervasive. Is Oprah just a bystander in all of this, or is she an active participant in the very system she's built her empire on? The stakes have never been higher, and people are starting to question whether she has blood on her hands. And then there's Stevie J. His name has been surfacing more and more, popping up in conversations about Diddy's world. If you're familiar with the culture, you already know that Stevie and Diddy have a history that runs deep, far beyond just business ties. Stevie didn't just show up at the parties as a guest. He was instrumental in building Bad Boy Records. He was one of the architects of Diddy's empire, working behind the scenes on some of the biggest hits of the 90s and early 2000s. Stevie was there in the thick of it all. When the feds raided Diddy's mansion, Stevie was one of the first to speak out, defending Diddy with the fierce loyalty of a family member. But now, the rumors surrounding Stevie J are starting to take a darker turn. Word on the street is that Stevie was involved in the infamous freak-offs, just like so many others. In fact, a lawsuit has even surfaced, naming Stevie as one of the individuals who helped orchestrate these wild nights, acting as a coordinator for Diddy's twisted events. And now, behind closed doors, there are whispers of a leaked clip that allegedly shows Stevie himself caught up in the madness. Despite this, Stevie remains steadfast, standing by Diddy and calling him a brother as if nothing ever happened. The streets are buzzing with questions. Is Stevie's loyalty genuine, or is he just as deep in this mess as the rest of them? Next up is Ashton Kutcher. Ashton's name has been thrown into the mix ever since footage surfaced showing him living it up at those infamous white freak-off parties. It wasn't just that he showed up, he was right there at the center of the spectacle, laughing, dancing, and enjoying every moment. But then came the moment when he was asked about it on Hot Ones. His response? Well, it spoke volumes. He froze. He stumbled over his words. That awkward silence that followed told the whole story. Did he party stories? Ashton had plenty of them, but he couldn't seem to get a word out when it was his turn to speak. He said, "Wow, okay, I've got a lot, but I can't tell you that one. I mean, I'm actually cycling through them." It was a moment of discomfort that raised far more questions than it answered. And then there's the history with Mila Kunis. Ashton and Mila's unwavering support for Danny Masterson, a convicted sex offender, has only deepened the mystery surrounding their involvement in these circles. The glowing letters they sent on his behalf raised eyebrows across Hollywood, causing many to question what kind of people Ashton and Mila were really associating with. This letter led to Ashton stepping down from the organization he co-founded. And now, with the rumors surrounding Diddy's tapes and the people involved in these infamous gatherings, the question on everyone's mind is, was Ashton just a bystander, or did he play a deeper role than he's letting on? He insists he was just a guest, but the timeline raises doubts. How deep owes Ashton's connection to Diddy go? The streets are watching, waiting to see what comes next. And then there's Naomi Campbell. Naomi's name has been circulating more and more every time Diddy and Epstein are mentioned in the same breath. Word is that both Diddy and Epstein had their private islands, their exclusive worlds, and rumors persist about underage children allegedly being flown in for unspeakable purposes. We all know what Epstein did, but now people are starting to ask, were Diddy's islands just as shady as Epstein's? And where does Naomi fit into all of this? The streets are whispering that Naomi wasn't just a guest at these private, secretive gatherings. She may have been involved in setting them up. Allegations claim that she helped recruit young girls and boys to join these twisted circles, promising them modeling contracts and opportunities, only to trap them into a nightmare. Some even say Naomi was functioning as a madam of sorts, helping Diddy manage his pipeline of young victims. Naomi's career has always been clouded in mystery, and as her ties to Diddy and Epstein continue to emerge, the questions surrounding her involvement grow louder. Rumors have long circulated that Naomi Campbell played a much darker role in Diddy's world than anyone realized. There have been whispers for years now about Naomi's involvement in Diddy's infamous freak-off circles, parties where the lines between power, fame, and exploitation blurred. The stories claim that Naomi wasn't just a passive participant in these extravagant events. Instead, she allegedly played an active role in recruiting young girls and boys into Diddy's world, promising them modeling contracts and a ticket to the glamorous life. But what they found instead was a world far darker than they could have imagined. The promises of fame turned into a nightmare as they were handed non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, sealing their silence while they were pushed into situations that had nothing to do with the runway lights and the glitter of high fashion. Some even claim that Naomi wasn't just facilitating this behavior, she was orchestrating it. She allegedly acted as a madam of sorts, helping Diddy manage his pipeline of victims, ensuring that the parties never ran out of fresh faces. One social media user didn't mince words. "Naomi gives me major madam vibes, always has. I think she does it for favors, connections, and money to keep her career moving forward." The implications of such accusations are chilling. Naomi's career, despite its many highs, has never seemed to falter, even through some of the most shocking scandals. That's the strange thing about her. While others would crumble under similar scrutiny, Naomi always seems to bounce back, her power seemingly untouchable. Some say it's because she has the right people in her corner. But how deep do those connections go? Could they really shield her from the consequences of her actions? Then there's the resurfaced interview where Naomi was directly asked about her connection to the notorious financier and convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. When the interviewer asked Naomi point-blank, "Did you know what Epstein was doing?" Naomi's response was less than convincing. "Yes, I knew him. I was introduced to him on my 31st birthday by my ex-boyfriend Flavio. He was always front and center at Victoria's Secret shows. But did I suspect what he was doing? No." Fans who watched this interview weren't convinced. Naomi's voice faltered slightly, her body language tense. The camera didn't miss the subtle shifts in her demeanor, and the internet immediately exploded with questions. She seemed to be dodging accountability, carefully avoiding a direct answer to a question that everyone else in the world had already come to terms with. With her ties to both Diddy and Epstein, could she really have been so ignorant? Or was this just another instance of Naomi maintaining her carefully curated public image, deflecting anything that could damage her brand? One fan wrote, "She's lying, too fidgety, she knew everything." It's hard to ignore the growing suspicion that Naomi's carefully crafted persona may have been built on lies. People are starting to connect the dots, wondering just how much she really knew about Epstein's crimes, and if she had a role in enabling them. Naomi's questionable ties don't end there. The supermodel also worked closely with Save the Children, an organization that not long ago found itself embroiled in a massive scandal of its own. Given the nature of her associations, people began to wonder, could Naomi have used her influence within the charity to conceal even darker realities? Was she part of a broader network that used these platforms as a means of maintaining power over vulnerable individuals? This revelation only added fuel to the fire, giving credence to the growing belief that Naomi might be far more involved in this twisted web than anyone could have imagined. And the rumors surrounding Naomi's relationship with Diddy go beyond just business. In the early 2000s, it was widely reported that Diddy and Naomi had a romantic connection. They were seen together frequently, even in the most high-profile social circles. But as Diddy's scandals began to unfold, Naomi seemed to distance herself from him. She was seen at his wild, freak-off parties right in the heart of the madness. But then, something changed. Naomi suddenly wiped Diddy from her social media, deleting all traces of their connection. She scrubbed him from her Instagram, as if erasing him from her past altogether. The timing was suspicious. Just as Diddy's legal troubles began to unravel, Naomi made it seem like she was cutting ties with him completely. Fans can't help but wonder, why the sudden change? Was it an attempt to protect herself from the fallout? Or was it a calculated move to distance herself from a sinking ship? After all, Naomi has always been able to move through Hollywood unscathed, seemingly immune to the scandals that have plagued others. But the streets are talking, and they want answers. Just how deep were Naomi's ties to Diddy? And how much of her career has been built on connections to figures who now find themselves at the center of scandal? And then there's the story of Diddy flying to London with young Miami to surprise Naomi with a cake in celebration of her doctorate. On the surface, this might seem like a kind gesture, a celebration of Naomi's success. But when you look at the bigger picture, the timing raises questions. Why now? Why celebrate her doctorate when Diddy is facing the darkest chapter of his life? The streets have begun to connect the dots, and they're asking, Is this just an innocent moment, or is it part of something larger, something more troubling? As more names begin to drop and these rumors swirl louder, the question that remains at the forefront of everyone's mind is, how far does Diddy's web of influence truly stretch? How many more high-profile names are involved in this web of secrecy, corruption, and scandal? Naomi, Oprah, Meek, Ashton, Stevie. Are they all truly innocent, or are they all complicit in hiding the truth, maintaining a facade of innocence while privately benefiting from the chaos? The streets are desperate for answers. With every new name that surfaces, we are inching closer to the truth, whether it's the truth we want to hear or the devastating truth that shatters the carefully constructed images of these icons. And as these whispers continue to grow louder, the real question becomes, who is truly innocent in all of this? Who is merely trying to survive, doing what they must to stay afloat in a world that thrives on secrets? And who is hiding in plain sight, waiting for the next name to fall, knowing that their turn is coming? Every new name that surfaces only deepens the mystery. Each revelation adds another layer to this complicated and dangerous game. But one thing is clear, the fallout from Diddy's scandal is far from over. The drama is just beginning, and we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. The next chapter of this story is coming, and it's not going to be pretty. As the streets continue to buzz, the questions grow louder. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think is guilty, and who is just a pawn in all of this? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the twists, turns, and shocking revelations in this unfolding celebrity scandal. This story is far from over, and we're only just getting started. With each new name, each new revelation, the mystery grows deeper. How far does Diddy's influence stretch? How many more powerful names will fall as the truth comes to light? The scandal is far from over, and there are still more twists to come. You don't want to miss what happens next. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think is next? Who's guilty and who's just trying to stay in the game? Like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. This story is far from over, and you won't want to miss the next chapter.